Hello everyone, welcome to another GOvitational. This is GOvitational 9, week 1, pod 1. We are going to feature Zack as our featured drafter, and in the booth with me is AtomicMushroom. Say hello.
Hello, I am AtomicMushroom.
Excellent, thanks a lot for joining. We are randomizing seating. We don't have to do that thing where we shuffle people anymore, it just does it automatically. So, okay, here we go. So yes, thanks to Senryoku, of course, for an excellent piece of kit for us to watch drafters with. We'll go. So we are going to wait for a pick to come in and then watch Zack. So, yeah, we've previously tried bouncing around a draft and looking at everyone's picks and working out what they're doing. It didn't work. So this is our format that seemed to work for GoVitational 8, which is just we watch a drafter, they come in afterwards. Zack doesn't have a lot of time to spare afterwards, so a brief chat with him, and then we'll probably wander around and look at other people's pools as well. So first picks are coming in. Once Zack has one, we'll look at that. And in the meantime, why don't you tell us how the set's been going for you, Atomic?
Yeah, I mean, it's going pretty well. I haven't been able to play as much as I wanted to. I do have two new babies, but I think it's a really fun set. And okay, cool. It looks like his first pick came in. I'm surprised that it makes you wait until they pick until you get to see the
It's
cards.
weird, isn't it? Let's not blame Senryoku for that amongst all the other brilliant stuff he's brought us.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. And I'm also surprised that they're in this Discord. That's really cool. I didn't know that before. So out of these picks, I mean, I don't hate Flowstone Infusion. I think it's a solid
Mm-hmm.
card. It works especially well in the blue-red spells deck. With that said, I think if you're thinking about going somewhere like that, the Tolarian Terror is definitely a very solid card.
For sure.
Um,
Right. We'll
cool.
we'll nip back to pack one, pick one because we can catch up. So there you go. Media is appreciating.
I think another card that you would look to take here would be the Talus Lookout. I'm not really a
Yeah,
fan of much of the other cards, especially at pick one. I mean, obviously you could always hedge on a land if you really wanted to, but I think for me, I'm looking to take the Lookout or the Terror, probably the Terror, personally.
excellent. Cool. So Zach warned us in advance that he would not be picking dual lands highly. So why don't we talk a bit about the set, the fact that you can get 3 dual lands in a pack, and what that means for how you've experienced the set to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are very likely to play multiple colors. And I think you're rewarded a lot. I think back in Streets of New Capenna, it was harder to play multiple colors, and you were really not incentivized to. Unlike in this set, you've got the off-colored kickers that really matter. You've got really solid cards that you'd like to splash that aren't even necessarily like rares or bombs. So I think it's good to pick those cards highly.
Excellent. It sends desperate for us to follow Zach's picks, but we've got time to catch up with him in pack one. So, what else is there to say? So yeah, Zach's kind of warned us that he's much more of a tight two-color synergy drafter person. So his preference is not to draft multicolor soup piles, even if the set supports it. Now, we'll see whether or not that comes true because he's only picked 4 cards so far. How much do you think that leaves on the table? Does it not leave up much if you're really good at spotting the open lane and good with synergy? Or do you think that you're giving up something, not being willing to drink soup?
I think you're definitely giving something up. I think soup in this format, like greed is good, really.
Green
There
soup
are
always
aggro
is.
decks that are solid, but I think you can get outvalued pretty easily if you're not trying to at least play sweep. I think it's reminiscent of Snow in Kaldheim, except for Snow was harder to play and get
Absolutely.
into.
Far fewer slots,
But
yeah.
I think that this is reminiscent of the strength of a Snow kind of deck in Kaldheim. Like you definitely should try to do it if you can. If not, obviously move away from it.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Boring side anecdote. The reason I like talking about soup is there is a pub near here, which is a really, really old school pub. Um, does beer out the barrel and does literally just does sandwiches and soup. Like it doesn't have a big kitchen, and they've been featured on the radio and stuff because they're a very well known oldie pub. But it's great. You go in and you ask them, "What soup do you have today?" And the answer is either green or brown soup. And they only have one or the other. You don't get a choice of two. So yeah, I've been there and I've had the green soup, so I'm a green soup fan for sure. In this format, I've been all right with soup in multiple colours, but not brilliant. So right, anyway, enough about soup, and we've talked about pick one already because we had that on our screen. So you can see Flowstone Infusion, and there's a few others in there. I agree, Talas Lookout's nice because it replaces itself and has evasion, and Terra's just been a complete nightmare. The Queen's an interesting one. I think if it had produced a token for every token you create, not one or more tokens, it would have been great. But then probably would have been upshifted to rare. But otherwise, the Queen is sometimes big and sometimes completely useless, I've found.
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't been super impressed by it. I've actually never played it, but every time it's been on the other side of the board, it's never really made much of an impact, personally.
Yeah. I felt sorry for an opponent because earlier today actually I played a game in which the queen was down to one toughness and they didn't realize if I iced another one of their creatures it would then die. So I think they thought, oh, I've played this perfectly, and then I like remove one of their other creatures and the queen dies, and they were like, oh, my entire plans to dust. So it's nice to watch other people punt because normally it's me doing it hard. So
Yeah, I mean, it happens on both sides of the table.
yeah. Right. Anyway, pick two, we did see briefly, so let's hop onto that, and that is the Black Phyrexian Defiler. Um, I found this one to be one of the weaker Defilers in the sense that when you cast a black permanent spell, it's one creature gets a buff till end of turn, whereas the green one is like put a counter on every creature you see. So, but on the other hand, it's still well priced, right? It's a 4/4 menace for 4.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid card. It's definitely one of the worst defilers. But with that said, it's a very good card. And out of this pack, I mean, Raf is good. I don't look to get a Raf early though, personally. Shore Up is fine. Again, pretty early for a Shore Up. I
Yeah.
like Root Walla again, early for a Root Walla. Land again is always solid if you want to go that way. I would say the next best card from the Defiler is probably Tribute.
Yeah. And if you're going to
Unless
be black
you
anyway,
value like a Ref.
good.
Yeah. So I would also do this pick as well.
Lovely. So pick three was a red card. This is interesting because I've spoken to another person who's like, when I see someone play this, I'm really happy because I think this card is not good, and that means them picking and playing it is not spectacular. So what do you make of that? Is
Yeah,
it
I
because
think
there's nothing else in this pack, to be fair, or is that a
I
sentiment you might share?
I think that is a very aggressive pick in
Stop
terms
picking
of
Zack.
I I would not
No.
have taken that card that early. I actually think that the Flowstone Kaivu is fine. Like I've actually liked it in my aggressive red decks because menace is important, and plus the ability to pump it is always nice.
Yep. Okay.
But with that said, I would definitely have taken the Geyser here. I think Geyser
Oh
is
yes.
phenomenal card.
I have loved that card, and I've not even resented my opponents playing it because it's such a good card. I'm just happy to see it being played.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm agree with you on that. So if Zach has time, we might ask about the Geezer pick three. So that's the Britishism. It's a geyser to you, geezer to me. Repo pick four. What else is in the pack? The Gardener, the Dual Land, and otherwise I'm not particularly overwhelmed with excitement. So what about you?
Yeah, Repossession is a phenomenal card. It's one of like what I was talking about earlier when it comes to value in this set. It is one of the better value cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's insane the fact that you get two creatures back for 3 mana, but not only that, you're also gaining life.
Yeah, it's mad. So do you ever play it when you're not black green or you can't pay the kicker? Is it a worthy one for one, or do you always wanting the 2 for 1 out of it?
I've always had the ability to do the 2 for 1. But with that said, sometimes it was a very light green splash off of like dual land, so it was
Yeah.
more of a
A nice to have, not a
potential.
going to have. Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
same, so I'm in agreement with you on that. So that's good. Pick five. If he picked a dual land, we'll have to tell him off. Is that because the uncommons aren't great? Would you not be taking Necromass, for example, if you think you might be in black, or is it just good to have that flexibility?
I would definitely be taking a dual land here, although I'm surprised. I mean, I understand why he took the black one since he has the Defiler and he probably wants to lean into that, but he's
Yep.
definitely made some aggressive red picks. I don't know if maybe Zack, wants to move into red in general in this set. So I think in general, as a dual land, the red blue one is better in this set.
Hmm.
But I understand why Zack took this one since he has probably wants to lean into the
Yep.
Defiler.
Very good. Dude, Sen really wants us to get up. So next was Magnagoth Sentry, which is interesting because that was their first dip into green, wasn't it? Pack 1, pick 6. Yeah.
Mhm.
So doesn't like the rare, which is fine because although it's a 4/4 for 4, it's 2 colors and there's not a lot of equipment and vehicles in the set. Sentry is a good
Yeah,
price, of course. Hydromancer is really only great. Well, 3/2 for 3 is fine, but when you can kick it and make a token or something, it can be really great, right?
yeah. I think Hydromancer is more of a cute card.
Hmm.
Most of the time, you're probably going to be casting that as a 3-drop. But
Yeah,
it can do the thing, which is nice. But yeah, I would be taking Sentry here.
fine, very good. And then Splatter Goblin pick 7. Already has the black cards, and um, yeah, that's fine. The red's not amazing. I thought the Berserker might do better, but I found Enlist to be kind of expensive because you can't tap something that's just ETB'd, and you're tapping something that would then just have to attack anyway. So all of Berserkers, when it dies, it also pings face. Didn't turn out to be much excitement to me. I don't know about how you found it.
Yeah, Berserker's fine in an aggressive shell. I think I agree. Like the ability to enlist is only useful. Like Berserker's a good finisher, I would
Hmm.
say. It's not as good, early on, which is when you're usually playing it. Um, but it's an okay card. I think Goblin makes sense with these other picks. This
Yep.
pack's pretty low power level in
Yep.
general. I
Agreed.
also would like to say I'm really a fan of the automatic librarian, especially when you're playing soup, because it's obviously castable with any sort of mana,
Yep.
and the scry is definitely relevant when you're playing soup
Yep.
because you want to make sure you're actually drawing things you can cast.
Filtration. Yes. So then Zach's taken a mana worker out of this pack, I guess. Besides the Necromass and one green card in Bog Badger and Magnagoth obviously in the pile, mana worker again just seems. He may certainly not run it unless he's got fixing requirements, but is there anything else in this pack that jumps out?
I mean, I actually love Mana Worker. I think it's an underdrafted card, probably. This is an
Excellent.
amazing card when you're playing Soup. I would highly
Mm.
recommend people to take it. And with that said, though, I'm somewhat surprised that Zach didn't take the Necromass
Yeah,
with the other picks.
for sure. And that's his second stab at one, isn't it?
Yeah, and also Bog Badger, I have enjoyed as well. Now, they aren't really in green that much, so again, I would lean towards the black here. But I would say Bog Badger is a fine card,
Yep,
especially if you have black in your deck.
very good. And there was another one in the previous pack, I think, as well. So yes, there was. So back-to-back Bob Badger declined. Apparition. Oh, the Queen Wield. So no one fancies her shenanigans. Um, is this fine? I mean, mostly black. Apparition is definitely a reasonable pick here. You're not specking on Blast, are you?
No, I mean Blast I think is fine. This is just not a very exciting pack in general to me. I have definitely played apparitions more in control shells,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been okay with it. I don't like it, but it's been fine. With that said, there's really nothing else
Very
in this
good.
pack.
Tribute Wield. That's nice.
Wow.
I mean, I found that to be decent removal.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Tribute is a fantastic card.
excellent. I will catch up with Zach soon, I'm sure, because we're just going to mop up this pack. So, what do you. Monstrosity Wield. Stop it, Sen. Monstrosity Wield. Didn't want to take a second apparition. That's fine. I can see that.
Mhm.
Uh, got the Librarian, you'll be pleased to see. And another Librarian. So, clearly, other people are not rating Librarian as highly as you. I think we've learned that from the end of that range of
Yeah, I
packs.
wouldn't say I rate it super high. It's
No,
more
no,
of
no.
I'm happy to play it if I don't have anything else. Like I'm not afraid to play it at all, and I'm not like sad to play it in a soup deck.
Fine. So pack two, pick one. Rager, I think, is a fine common, right? It replaces itself cheap. Is there anything else you see that you would take over it?
Not really.
Fine.
That's definitely the best card in the pack.
Cool. Asked and answered. King Darien came after. Now Zack has some green cards and has the Sunlit Marsh, so could be black green splashing for Darien. Does that seem reasonable to you? And does anything else jump out?
Yeah, I mean, I actually really like. Again, I'm not afraid to play multicolor in this. I
Mm,
think it's interesting based off of what he said that what they said that they would choose this card, but I think it's a good card, and I think it's well above most of the other cards in this pack outside of Love Song. But
yes.
again, they aren't really white anyways, and if they're gonna take a white card, why
No.
not the King Darien,
Take the
right?
king. Cool. Phyrexian Missionary is another pull into white, straight after King Darien. Again, what can play in a black, green, white kind of space. Um, would you? This is an interesting pick because, of course, I guess if they were a tight two colors, they'd take the Rager, right? So taking Missionary
Yeah,
suggests they're open to the prospect of being white.
right. And I do think that Missionary is a fine card. I think with the other picks and already kind of leaning into black, I would be much more likely to take the Rager over the Missionary. With potential other picks I might have made, the Morrow, I mean, is an amazing card. And again, in Soup, especially,
Mm.
I mean, that's really only where you could play it. But
Mm-hmm.
I would be, assuming I had other picks that would make sense for it, I would take the Marrow. But the Rager, I think, is the card I would have taken over the
Interesting.
Missionary.
So that's an interesting decision point, which we should try and recall. Takes a Rager next pick though, so that's interesting. So pack two, pick four does get a second Rager, but there's nothing else really here, maybe apart from a dual land that
Hmm.
throws itself. Take up the shield, of course. I guess if you are going to be running white, I've found to be a ridiculous combat trick.
Hmm. Yeah, take up the shield's really solid. You could take the land here. I think again with what they've taken so far, they don't really have much red, so
Yeah,
it's
started at
not as
very early in
enticing.
red, but otherwise not fussed, right? So
Yeah.
okay. Pick five, a mostly black card, but again could be black green. Are you finding Urg to be any good, or would you just take for example, the Elfhame Worm here instead? Um,
I would definitely prefer the Erg over
okay.
the Worm. Worm is again, it's a playable card. I'm not usually happy playing it though.
Some of the four toughness for five mana is yeah, despite all the other words on the front of its face, not
Right, which
particularly.
is surprising, right? Vigilance and Trample,
Hmm.
and a 5/4 for 5 mana, you would think is pretty good, right? In most sets, it's probably actually pretty great, but I just have not been impressed with it.
Okay. Whereas this gives you more filtration, of course, which is nice.
Mhm.
Cool. Battle Rage Blessing, definitely not in the kind of top shelf of combat tricks, but Battle Rage Blessing is still on color, I guess, and does surprise.
That is surprising.
Bit late for the Argosy because you want to build around ETB triggers for that, don't you? I mean, he's got a couple of Phyrexian Rages. Is Argosy just a dead
Yeah,
slot?
honestly, I think had they taken multiple Ragers, or I guess there was only one pick where they could have, I might have taken the Argosy. I think at that point they might have had enough to make it actually relevant. And this
Mm-hmm.
pack is pretty unexciting. Like I really don't care for a Battle Rage Blessing. Um, I think actually I might have taken a Soul Tender over that.
Yep.
Um, but Argosy might have actually been able to be playable with all of
Interesting.
the ETBs that you might have had at this point.
We'll see whether or not we can ask about that. So yeah, we got Battle Rage Blessing. Next one was a Barkweave Crusher. Doesn't want a second Battle Rage Blessing. Probably isn't fussed about a Root Weaver, and we're thinking at this point the black green, possibly black green white lane is carved out, right? This is around the point in the draft we think that's where Zack's headed.
Yeah, I mean, I've really not liked that card, but I see why Zach might have taken it. I
A
think
lack of other choice, yeah.
The interesting thing is there's definitely been quite a few picks where I would just spec on a land
Yep,
because the pack is just not good. And like this would be an instance, right? Where it's like,
yep.
yeah, I'm not really in red or white very much, but
At least I have
you
the
never know.
flexibility if I take it. Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Pack 2, pick 8. Oh, Zach's nearly at the end of the draft. We've been having such a nice time talking. We're only halfway through the draft. Vivisector was pack 2, pick 8. Da, 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 da. Yeah. So that's fine, right? No arguments there. Would you go for
No.
Lagomos? You're not
I
splashing another color.
I actually might.
Yeah.
I think that
Had
that's a
you been
solid
picking
card.
dual lands, yeah, as well, you might have had the
Exactly.
flexibility to. But Vivisector is where Zach's at. Then he gets a white-black Painland, which wheels, and that's fine for where he is, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, cool. Oh, no, we're near the end of the draft, so I can stop fighting Sen shortly. But let's do the end of pack 10. Or not. Pack 2, pick 10. Oh, we're done. Look at that. Right, let's go back to Zach. Can I review? Sorry, we were having such a nice time, weren't we, that it absolutely flew
Yeah,
by.
that also seemed to go by really fast.
Oh, it's just being in your company. Right. Is Zach in as well? Do I hear
Yes.
Zach? Hello.
Mhm.
We
Hey, what's
were
up?
having such a nice time, and we had a little chat to start that we've actually only got to pack 2, pick 10, I think. So what we'll do is we'll quickly whiz through the last few picks, and then we'll talk to you. How long have you got?
Uh, like 15 minutes maybe?
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah.
Um, let's just quickly whiz through pack 3 because we were around the point where you carved out your lane. So feel free to
Mhm.
mute and come back in like 3 or 4 minutes. You could always build, I guess, because I told you not to come and talk to us. But if you want to have a quick look at what you think your build's going to be, while we quickly finish off the draft.
Okay, I'll
We'll
be
see
back
you
in
in a
like
few.
4 minutes.
You're a star. Thanks a lot. All right, so we've got the draft log. Let's go to picks, and we want to get to pick 2, pack 2, pick 10. 10 packs would be great. So Splatter Goblin was the next one after the Painland wheel, which is fine, yeah. But again, a third chance for a Necromancer not interested. So maybe we'll ask what Zach's got against these zombies.
Yeah. Yeah, because I do think Necromass is a pretty solid card, especially if they would have picked up that Soul Tender. Soul Tenders really activate those a lot easier too.
Cool. I'm just quickly throwing a few things in Notepad so he can grill Zach. Snare Spin is the only thing on color. Might not run it, but decent sideboard card, right? I suppose.
Yeah.
Steel Crusher's probably fine from that pack, and well, unless he's running a lot of red, these things probably don't matter. So pack 3, pick 1. We think Zach is comfortable being black-green and takes a bite down, which is fine here, right? Decent removal.
Yeah, I mean, really nothing else
Yeah,
for them to take, anyways.
fine. Good. Pack 3, pick 2. Conscript is on color over braids. Is that because Zach's not interested in sacrificing stuff, or can you think of a reason not to take braids here?
I mean, I think Cult Conscript is a fine card. I also have really liked Braids. I think Braids does a little bit better in more of a control shell,
Mm-hmm.
but which I wouldn't say I've noticed the path for Zack, but I still think Braids is my pick over the Cult here. But I think Colt's a good card.
Cool. Just having a question in chat about the separate channel about how to submit decks.
Yeah, I've actually been quite impressed with Braids.
Cool.
I think one of the things I sacrifice the most is actually lands.
That's right.
If
Put them
and
under
it's
real
worked out
pressure.
pretty well.
Yeah, no, I've seen that come true as well. So yeah, I quite like that rare. So yeah, question there. Another bite down, which in this pile I think is fine. You don't want a second repo before a second bite down, do you? Question mark.
It really depends on how much other removal I would have at this point. I think actually multiple repossessions are totally fine, right? Because
Yeah.
you're fine trading off creatures, just literally for ones because you're gonna get them back anyway.
Yeah. At this point,
But I
Zach has
don't.
one bite down and one repossession and no other removal. So
Yeah, I think at that point I would take a bite down.
cool. Soul Tender is the best black/green/white card in the pack, right? So is this okay?
Yeah,
You're not domainy enough for Root Waller. Swarm is Swarm has been annoying, of course. The threat of activation makes Swarm a big trader upper.
Yeah, I think again, I've normally taken more dual lands at this point, so the root wall would actually be more relevant.
Yes, for
But
you, certainly, but
with
with Zack's
the
Pearl.
picks, yeah, Soul Tender makes sense. Also, that rare is really, really solid.
Mm,
Not that it would make sense in this
no,
deck, but
but good to know. Cool. A black gold card in your colors that you're drafting. So I guess you have that before Radiant Grove, but otherwise this is fine.
oh yeah, Bone Rattle is
Very
amazing.
nice. Good. Got the second repo, and which is fine
Nice.
over a snare spinner or a black red land. Got another Urg, but again,
Okay.
besides maybe Broken Wings to the sideboard, that's the pick, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, Scout's not looking for a third color, like as not.
No. Yeah, and Broken Wings I think is not that relevant, although again, Urg is just too good to pass in this pack.
Very good. Another snare spinner over Vine Wall or Blight Pile. Not doing the wall thing, I guess, but you happy with a second snare spinner over a Vine Wall? Again, I guess it depends if you're fixing.
Um, I think that's okay just to hedge against flyers a little bit more.
Cool.
For the sideboard.
Excellent. Another Librarian. I believe that's the third or fourth. Good.
Yeah,
Nothing else in there
nothing
though.
else.
Yeah, and now we get into the dregs. A relic if he does want a mana rock. A relic if he does want a mana rock. So got some fixed options. I guess so now, before Zack comes in, there's the pile. Do you think he will be running Darien and Missionary and trying to splash with two white-black sources and possibly a mana rock, or do you think he'll stay a type black-green?
Yeah, I think he's gonna play the Darien, or they're gonna play the Darien.
Okay, well that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Good. I've told him to come on back in private messaging, so.
I could almost even see needing to main deck a snare spinner. Too many 2-drops.
That's right, you've got Vivisector, two goblins, the mana worker, and that's it. So yeah, looks like Spideys may come. Right, Zack, how do you think the draft went? Question 1.
I'm pretty happy with it. I 90% expected to not get that much removal in that half.
Do you expected not to get much removal, and that came to pass?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because like people take it really highly.
We noticed too. So I asked. So this is a question for AtomicMushroom. When we're shortening your name, do you prefer Atomic or Mushroom?
Mushroom works.
Good, because I used Atomic earlier. And I was like, that sounds wrong. So we'll go Mushroom. I asked Mushroom
Okay.
that point, Zack, because you had one bite down and one Urborg repossession, and then you took a second bite down. I'm like, do you take a second bite down before a second repossession? And Mushroom said, given the amount of removal and lack of that we've seen, the second bite down makes sense. So yeah, cool. We're sharing the deck on screen, so we could. That's not the deck, the pile. Obviously, we've not seen the deck yet. Have you built it, or are you still thinking about it?
I have one cut left. Literally.
One cut left. All right. So tell us. I'm just trying to think because we don't want to guide you too much when you submitted, but you've got a couple of outside color cards. We think you look predominantly black-green with some other colored cards. Are you playing any of those other colored cards?
Yeah, for actually Missionary and King Darien.
Cool. Okay, that's good. That was a question we had to ask you, but we wanted it to be not a leading question. Now we'll ask you a few things about cards you didn't take, if we may. So let's go backwards through draft because I took more notes towards the
It's
end.
gonna be Braids, isn't it?
Oh, you bet Braid is on the list. Yes, it is Sunshine. So pack 3, pick 2. You took Cult Conscript over Braids. Tell us why.
Because like mostly if you're looking only at the stat line, you really don't need it in this format. And then on top of that, I doubt my deck the way it's looking, and even the way black looks, like you can't take advantage of Bone Splitter as well. You can't really use Braids as well. The ability, it's cool in some situations, but I think it's a lot more important to not die early. Like the value wasn't as important as like because I'm getting repossessions and I have a missionary already, King Darien. Like And this is still situational. I need to stack something and hopefully stack something good.
Mushroom, do you have any questions about that answer?
No, I mean, I think in some ways that makes sense. The lack of early plays, before 3, I can see one of the reasons why to play the Cold Conscript. I've been pretty impressed with braids on both sides of the battlefield. I think especially if like you're on the play and you have excess lands, it's definitely a great thing to start like saying like, oh, I could start sacking lands depending on your curve. And forcing them to make that decision too, right? And a lot of times they might let you draw cards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting pick, but I think it makes sense.
How much was the lack of early drops your defining choice there, Zack? Because we were looking at the number of snare spinners you have and how many you might main deck.
I was definitely looking to avoid main deck and snare spinners because I'm like of the mentality that if you play 2-drops that can't attack early, you're very likely to lose to their bombs if they have better bombs than you or if their late game's better than you, and I did not want to play a game where I would have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it. The other half was like, yes, I don't have 2-drops, and that's part of the reason why. Like 2-drops, not having that many things kind of hurts. I didn't expect to get that many because I wasn't seeing that many in packs. Like I'd get like Barkley Crushers, like they're not good, but they work perfectly fine if you're trying to kill somebody with it, and you're not being attacked a bunch. Which again, 2-drops help with. Braids is good, but like Braids is really good.
Cool.
I think for me it was more about patching a hole than actually like making some other stuff better, which I thought I already had pretty good.
Very well. One other specific pick, and then a few generalities we want to pick you on. Pack 2, pick 6, you took a Battle Rage Blessing as a combat trick
Yes.
over the vehicle, Golden Argosy, despite the
Yeah.
fact you had a few Phyrexian Rangers, and we wondered if you thought you just didn't have enough ETB value to run the vehicle, or if you have a specific grievance with it.
No, I just didn't think I'd be attacking enough, and if I did attack with it, I wouldn't necessarily have enough removal to back it up. Like it's a powerful thing, but again, it's the same thing. Like I'd rather like I had enough card draw, I had enough value already. I don't think trying to go overboard on it's like you can get some really cool things like you draw a lot of cards, completely outdistance somebody card wise,
Mm-hmm.
and I like the stats too. But regardless, like the Battle Rage Blessing was a lot closer to like any sort of thing that can kill something, I would take it at that point.
Cool.
This was really close though.
So you're treating it as kind of conditional removal to some extent,
Very
which your
conditional.
deck is light on. To be fair, we didn't see we were only looking at your lane and didn't see any removal that you seemed to pass by. So it'll be interesting to look at. Once you've gone, we'll have a quick look around the rest of the pod and do a mop up, and we'll see whether or not the pod was just light on removal or if it was prioritized
Yeah.
by others. So maybe one other, unless I've got no Phyrexian Missionary. Oh yeah, so this was a pick. Pack 2, pick 3. You took Phyrexian Missionary over a third Phyrexian Rager, sorry. Phyrexian
Was that
Ranger would be
second one
something
at
so
that point?
different. It's your first Phyrexian Missionary, I think. Pack 2, pick 3.
No, the
Oh,
Rager.
sorry, the Rager. I see what you mean. Yeah, let's see. I thought you no, it was your second, sorry. You took one pack
Yes.
2, pick 1, and then you had a choice between a second or Phyrexian Missionary pack 2, pick 3. So I was just wondering, you were definitely more black than you were white. Is Missionary that much better than Rager? That's why you
Oh, it
picked
was
it?
just a splash. Like I had Mana Worker and a land, and I did not think it would be very hard to get the fixing for them.
Cool. So you're
And it's a really
hoping
powerful card.
to kick it to get proper value.
Basically playing as a 4-drop,
Cool.
2/3 lifelink gets the thing back here.
Excellent. Sorry, Toto's saying something about submitting a deck list. So I'm making sure people are being diligent as well. All right, cool. That was the last specific pick, and then some observations were you ended up with 0 Writhing Necromancers, despite the fact that they're probably
Yes.
coming in cheaper. Now, that sounds like it's a decision you made consciously, so tell us why you weren't picking them.
I wasn't like avoiding them specifically. It was more like I was not as worried about top end as I was about the lower end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless if I needed to, like, I don't like Barkweave Crusher, but it is still kind of good to get through people. Like this 5 toughness is enough to just like completely stop people attacking, and I have enough removal at this point that it like doesn't matter really whether or
Okay.
not like I have a super big thing or like a slightly less big thing.
It sounds to me like you're slightly lower than maybe the booth were on Necromancers and higher than the booth was on Barkweave Crushers.
I'm
That
not that high
probably
on
explains
Barkweave
it.
Crusher. I like
Okay,
Necromancer better too.
but you already had Crushers and you weren't going to spend picks replacing a
Yeah, like
Crusher
it
for
wasn't in the same
Necromass.
pack. Yeah,
That's
it wasn't
right.
the same pack. I just
I understand. So, you're like, I may not be happy with what I've got, but I'm better off using my picks to finish off my bottom end rather than swapping
yes,
out
yeah.
things at the
I
top
want
end.
more consistency.
Understood. How do you feel about that, Mushroom? Because we observed this Necromass drive-by.
Yeah, I mean, I think Necromass in the right deck makes sense. One of the things that I was actually curious about was one of those picks with the Argosy. There was also a Soul Tender instead of the Battle Scar, whatever that combat trick
Yeah.
was called. I was somewhat surprised that you didn't try taking that. Well, just real quick, what's your thought on the Soul
Yeah.
Tender?
Okay, so I know people are high on Soul Center. I am too, but I think at that point, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think my pick was closer between Soul Tender and the Blessing. But at that point, like the amount of 3 drops that I had that either just scryed a bunch or drew me cards was like I can afford to like be a little bit picky about them and patch up a big removal hole in my deck because I did not have much at all at that. And
Mhm.
like I just gonna like those 3 drops are just gonna do a very similar thing. I have repossessions. I didn't have a board trick at that point, but like I wasn't too worried because my 3 drops already did similar and not as like sometimes not as powerful. Like I want the Rager more. My brains are completely fine. Like I'm not. I'm just more worried about the whole removal aspect than just a little more card draw.
Yeah,
Cool.
that makes sense. I think with the urge, the soul tender also goes up. But the reason why I was mentioning the soul tender was because those are also really good synergy with the necromass. And I
Yes.
think the necromass are pretty decent top end for a deck like this. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think that those picks make sense in that context.
All right. Um, it was fun watching you, Zach. Thank you for being patient while we finished off the draft.
Mhm.
It was me talking too much and sharing anecdotes about soup. You'll be unsurprised to know. While we're talking about soup, I guess the one last question is: you warned us that you would not be prioritizing dual lands highly before the draft started, and so it came to pass. So, do you want to give us like 30 seconds on why you're not a dual land prioritizer in a set where packs are sometimes rife with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't prioritize them, it's just that I prioritize other things more than them. Like, they matter. They still represent, like, super early on, a very decent chance that you won't play them. And, like, you don't send signals, you don't do much with them. I usually pick them a little later, or in packs where there's not much of a choice, or, like, there's not, like, it's not too hard to make a decision. But otherwise, it's a lot closer to, like, do I want this card that's if I'm in the deck is gonna be like very good, or do I want this land that if I'm in the deck could help me splash something? Like that's a risk I'm usually not too happy to. I know it's powerful, but I'd rather have a solid deck and like a chance of a splash rather than like maybe good splashes and maybe a solid deck.
Cool. Mushroom. Do you want to reconcile? I'm being bad cop here, and you're being good cop. You may have noticed, or at least that's what I feel. But would you like to reconcile what Zach just said with how you viewed the draft and where you think you may have deviated and picked lands over picks? Just for counterpoint.
Yeah, actually, there were a couple times where Zach did take dual lands, and I was surprised just because of the the comment you made before about how he's not going to prioritize those.
There you go, Zach. You can get
Um,
on the video and see how badly I misrepresented you.
calling
this
you out,
this is
Jack.
slander.
But I think personally in this set, I think there's a lot of value that can be gained from taking dual lands, especially like Zach's even did with the missionary. Like that's a great example. Darian's a good example. Um, there's not too many off-color kicker that Zach has, if at
Mm.
all. So that doesn't really matter, but it is relevant in other decks where it's just like, or there's like random domain cards that you could have in your deck that gain value from it. So I think for me in this set, I'm actually always kind of looking to potentially go more of a soup kind of deal, or at least just taking dual lands highly. Um, but it's not always necessary. There's actually like I just recently drafted a blue red spells deck, and I don't actually know if I have any dual lands. Maybe if I do, I have like one. Like so in that instance, I found a lane. I really carved it out and was actually prioritizing solid cards for the spells deck that enabled it versus taking any lands or potential off color kicker stuff. So I think it depends on the draft, but in general, I'm definitely looking to take those lands highly, especially early on. If there's nothing fantastic in the pack.
Cool. Zack, you've got one more cut to do, and you've already given us excess of your time, so I'll let you go. But thank you very much. It was good watching you. And obviously, most importantly, good luck in the matchups.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You
You've still
too.
got half a Sunday to go, whereas it's winding up over here. So, yeah, go get them. Have some fun.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a
See you
lot.
later, guys.
Bye, Zach.
Bye for now. What we'll do, if you've got a bit more time, Mushroom, is we'll quickly look at everyone's piles. We won't bother like going pick by pick, but let's do a quick like circle around the pod, shall we, and see where other people ended up.
Yeah.
What I did notice is that Dunk is also black-green, so we'll see how that goes. So moving around the table, let's go backwards. So Media was passing to Zack and has a teamer pile, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we didn't ask Zack about the geezer. Dang it, that's the note I didn't take. But there we go. So it goes. I think I would agree with you that I would have taken the Tolarian geezer very early in the draft. But anyway, that ship sailed. So what do we think here? Base green red? More green than red and a bit of blue?
This is an interesting pile. I haven't quite seen a teamer deck, and it's like a teamer spells deck.
Yeah. Does the dual land pile look like you after a draft?
Yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
looks, more
Indicative.
like what I have. And then, like for instance, too, you can see they have the marrow or the marrow. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but
I call it Marrow, right? Because it was named after him, and he goes by Marrow as well. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. So the marrow, the sojourner, which makes sense with all of those dual lands. They have the off-color kickers that would be relevant. It's a very interesting deck. It looks like it wants to be aggressive. It's like a tempo teamer, like Gruul aggro deck. It's very interesting. I haven't seen that in this format. I think it could definitely be successful and punish potential other decks that are slower.
Excellent.
And there also is other value in there too, with like the prodigies being able to, grab some cards and things like that. It's really interesting.
There you go. Interesting fellow, interesting pile. I've just actually been DM'd the actual deck, so you've read it well from the runes of the pile.
Oh, okay.
Eldborn has a mostly black-white pile.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3 people, Zack, Eld, and Dunk, all drafting black, which probably explains why there's been some trouble. What do we see? We've got 2 defilers in the pod.
Yep.
There's some removal. That's why. So some of it just didn't make it to Zack because this person was 2 seats up.
Yeah. This deck actually looks, I would say, so far out of the different decks we've seen, seems like the most consistent and
Yep. Triple
solid,
Rager.
I would say.
Decent bunch of 2-drops. Got to take up the shield and some removal and the defiler. And a Denether, which is obviously the aura equipment stuff's largely our extra text, but 5 mana for a first strike Vigi lifelink? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
and
yeah,
a
this
Silex,
one
of
looks
course, which is also Rothable. We'll see whether or not it ends up in the main deck. But yeah, looks fine. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one.
Night Savior is Naya. mostly white red, right? But with a lot of red green gold cards.
Mhm.
But has 3 dual lands, all of which can run green. So, what do you make of this?
Yeah, this one is interesting. I'd be curious to see what sort of mana base they run. Um, but it is intriguing. I think it looks potentially difficult to cast their cards when they want to. Again, this is an aggressive shell. I think that the other decks that we've seen probably do it a little bit better, like
Hmm.
the past 2 decks. This could this could work.
That's the spirit. I suppose anything can work, as we're going to find out in 3 hours when I draft, because goodness knows how that's going to end up. Toto is let's see. Toto is now in this pod, right? We shuffled them from pod 2 to pod 1. So that's where we're at on this. So is largely blue. Blue is their defining feature. White the second deepest color, although it's all tempo stuff in white, isn't it? Wing mantle,
Mhm.
stall, triple blast, arrest. Do you make a blue-white pile out of this? With Wrath, I suppose that helps.
I think so. It definitely this looks like a control deck that's looking to cast terrors after maybe killing the opponent's things and countering their spells. I actually have really liked control in this set, so it could work. I don't know if the chaplain has enough things to turn it on, unfortunately. I'm curious when they might have seen that. Maybe it was a hate draft, or maybe they tried to take it earlier and they just didn't see anything else. Because like they only have the vine wall, which it's not even on color. They have the colony. Yeah, so I don't even know if they're going to be playing the chaplain, but I guess they have the bulwark too. Well, they have the drawbridge. Shield Wall Sentinel. Okay, actually, they do have a couple defender cards, so they probably will be playing that. Yeah, this will actually be an interesting one. I think it's definitely a control deck looking to probably get into the game later and just
Yeah,
overwhelm the opponent with value.
yeah, yeah. Cool, 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 cool. Next pile, Dunk, who was also in black-green, so our third black drafter and our second black-green drafter besides Zack.
Oh, there's the braids.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see
Yeah,
if
this
Dunk
one
can
looks
exploit
nice.
it.
Yeah, this one looks nice. They have a decent amount of um dual lands as well to kind of help turn on those root wallas a little bit. Um yeah, no, this one looks nice.
Cool.
There's another extinguish the light too. So yeah,
Oh
another
yeah,
more black removal taken.
that's right.
Another tribute.
So in this pile, besides the black-green, are you running either Lagomos or Rona off other fixing sources, or are you just staying black-green?
Rona, I have not been too um impressed by. The
Mm-hmm.
Vohar maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe I would run that.
yeah.
Um
I
you
found Vohar to be better than Rona as well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Lagomos as well. I think it's better when you can play it on curve, though, because most of the time, right, if you're playing it later, it's gonna get walled anyways. So
Yeah.
unless you have value from creatures dying,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think they have any of,
No,
probably not playing
no.
that. But I think the Vohar you
The best is
could,
Vivisector acting as a scry, but that's small beer.
right?
Uh,
Yeah,
no,
I think you could, but I don't know if you would be playing any of
for
those.
sure. I found Lagomos only to be really great when you pair it with the other black red gold card that draws a card off attacking things when they die, because you can just
Hmm.
send the thing you spawn. You're basically drawing an extra card a turn. But obviously you have to get both cards on the battlefield and stick them. So as a combo, it's a bit of a parlay.
Or anything that like can sacrifice creatures for value. Like even the barricade could do something like that. There are a couple other cards that can get value from it too. I remember I had an opponent who was using it in a way similar to that. I can't remember what they were doing, but they were definitely like drawing cards or something off of it, and it was quite annoying.
Excellent. Let's have a look at Nate. Nate is double queen. That's where they all ended up. So what do we think here? Green, green, white, I guess, but actually Naya as well to some extent, maybe some red stuff, red, green stuff. Squee in the red pile. Like, yeah, what do you end up with here? Do you end up with a white, green, red pile?
Yeah, definitely. This actually looks pretty interesting. I would be curious to see how it plays out because this is definitely like a tokens deck, right?
Yes, with for sure double queen, and so they've also got the fixing, I guess, right? So, well, Plaza's disappointing fixing, but anyway,
Yeah,
so
they have three Scout the Wilderness,
yep,
right?
they've got the Vine Wall,
Which
3 scouts, and the Weather Seed, so lots of
Mhm.
lots of ways to find land.
Yeah, this one looks interesting. They have a lot of ways to pump their creatures. I haven't been super impressed by tokens decks, but this one looks interesting. It looks fun. I'm really curious to see how this one plays out.
Excellent. And they took the Argosy, but have no no real ETB value. So I'm guessing that the poor ship's being benched this draft.
Yeah,
And then last
probably.
up, we've got Pablo who filled in for DT76. So DT76 has to make a pile out of this, a draft out
Nice.
of this pile. But this is the blue-red deck, right?
Yep,
Um,
this is great.
double Geyser, double Amplifier in the 2-drop slot, lots of spells, triple Terror, yeah, and Firestorm, of course, for the potential asymmetrical Wrath.
Yeah,
And
this
hate
deck actually
drafted
looks
an
really nice.
Extinguish. Look at that.
Yep, there's another one.
Oh, that was probably
Wow.
taken from Zack Pack 2, right? Before it got to Zack.
Yeah.
So harsh, Pablo. Yeah.
And they might actually be splashing black. Not for the Extinguish, but maybe for that Airtie. Because they've got the Bog, they've got the Grotto. Maybe they also play, a Swamp or something like that. But this deck looks pretty nice. Looks like it might be a little light on creatures, but they definitely have a lot of they have a lot of the pieces you're looking for in the blue red deck. So this one
Yeah.
looks pretty nice.
Nice. Good. Right. So back to Zack. I actually messaged him. So Zack's going to make his final cut later because he's got to go to a local game store. Lucky guy. I asked him about that Tolarian Giza, pack 1, pick 2 or 3. He took Flowstone Carvu over it. And he said, hold on, let me quote him verbatim since I've already totally trash talk his dual land talk. He said, the choice of Flowstone Carvu over Tolarian Giza was more of a both are good in the decks that want them. Giza is better, but not enough to make me swap from Flowstone Carvu, having already got a red card. But he said, I'll admit I could also have picked Giza. So there you go. That was his take on that. And I think with that, we're done looking at the pod. So thanks for your hour chatting alongside.
Yeah, it's been really great. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this. I
it
guess we were
always
going a
is.
little slow during the draft, but
Lesson learned. I was having such a nice chat at the start, thinking we'd get a chance to catch up on the picks, and we didn't. So yes, next time we do. This is why we do a feature drafter in week 1, right? By the time the finals come around, we're a tight unit on the recording side, whereas this was a lot more like, hey, it's been 6 months since we've done this. Let's talk about the set generally, yada yada. So yeah.
No,
Anyway,
it's really great.
it was still fun. So thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day. You mentioned you have 2 young kids. Are they twins?
They are twins. Yeah, I
Oh
have boy and
boy.
girl twins. Yeah, they're a little
Congrats.
over 5 months. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. If Murph's in the room and actually is listening and has time to unmute, maybe you can share parenting stories, because that's not something I can help with. But I have a coworker who had twins recently as well. So yes, I'm minded to know that it's both a joy for the parents, but also a handful.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think kids in general fit that bill, but I mean, it's amazing. It really is.
Excellent.
But I feel for you too. There's a give and take. There's that envy of also not having kids because remembering that life of just having the time and freedom. But I mean, I wouldn't take it back.
I won't use my time and freedom as a stick to beat you with then. All right. Anyway, all right. We'll bug out now. Murph has actually messaged to say he's in the grocers because he's pure multitasking What a polymath. But anyway, thanks a lot. Are you playing this season?
When you say this season, are you referring to the
GOvitational.
No, again, with the kids, I
Understood.
don't have time.
There's always room in the booth in finals if we can make it line up. So
Yeah,
keep your diary open. All right. Well, thanks a lot. I'll go and throw this video up on YouTube, and we'll see if anyone wants to review it later on. Maybe once everyone's submitted their decks, I'll be diligent. But thanks again. Much appreciated.
All right. Yeah.
Bye for now.